Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to be a continuation of a previous lesson from the first chapter of Genesis. We made it all the way up till verse 19, day 4 in the 7-day account of creation. It begins in the beginning itself. First verse reads, "In the beginning Elohim created the heavens and the earth." There we learn the when in the beginning, before anything that was. Who Elohim and what he did was created the heavens and the earth, and the origin of all four dimensions in the time-space continuum are explained in that verse. The time, creation is energy, beginning is time, creation is energy, heaven is space, earth is matter. So all those things owe their origin to a singular being who was eternally alive and yet invisible, and he created everything that is visible and tangible. Genesis 1:1 is a line in the sand which separates believers from non-believers. A lot of people do struggle with the concept of even a creation. But that's the origin of the explanation of our origins that the Bible gives. But if you can believe Genesis 1:1, it's literally the greatest miracle in the history of the universe was its formation. The only thing greater will be its redemption, which awaits it. So that if you believe that, you're less likely to struggle with believing everything else in the Bible. And then we witness the earth is formless and empty, and it's completely dark, covered in dark, and the Spirit, a distinct creative agent, a creative collaborator, was present, and he was hovering on the face of the waters. He is also hovering in the form of a dove when he descends to his the baptized Son. And verse 3, Elohim said, "Let light come to be," and light came to be. So everything that was created owes its origin to being spoken into existence. He has a mind that thinks, a heart that feels, and a will that acts. And when he wills something, he can will it into existence. That is how sovereign his will is. So all he has to do is say the word, and light came to be. No one had ever seen anything like it. It was an altogether new reality, a new phenomenon. And just like that, it came into being. And he declared it was good. So a lot of the things we read in day 1 inform what we read of in the rest of the good and the separation. There's a separation between the sky and the sea in day 2, and also the earth from the sea in day 3. So separation points to the fact that not everything is meant to be monolithic in substance and structure. There is distinctions and diversities which are authorized and ordained by the one who spoke them into existence and declared their boundaries. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, day 1. So his ability to call something anything is a sign and stamp of ownership. Adam is delegated the task of naming the animals, calling them, but because the man hadn't even been created and wouldn't be created until day 6, we'll get there today. This is the climax of creation that we read. So day 1, now the Hebrew word translates as yom. That's a 24-hour period. A lot of people struggle with the 6-day fact as declared in the Bible, and they like to stretch it out and say that evolution could have taken place. And they point, everything in the universe is light years away, and the age of the earth geologically is more mature than a literal translation of Genesis 1 would suggest. But he created Adam in pristine form, so it's therefore not implausible that he created the universe and earth and life with extended life beyond itself. And then we read in day 2, the day 1 is the heavens. He forms the heavens. He declares he declares separate. He declares light where there was only darkness, and he declares it good and declares it separate. Then he does he forms the sky and the sea on day 2. The expanse is what he names heavens. So this is the sky over the earth. A lot of his creative activity is focused on this pale blue dot, which is but a microscopic lens into the vast near infinitude of the universe. Much of his creative efforts and attentions are placed on this pale blue dot. So we are the center of the universe, not physically, but spiritually. And then the second day, and then he does the same thing. He forms the sky and the sea, and then he does the same thing with the earth. He forms on day 3. the third day, and the origin of grass starts to grow. So there's this. All the land was formerly water. We learn as early as the second verse. Formless and empty, moving on the face of the water. That's all there was when it was formless and void in that day. Day 4, we reread the second half of the pattern, which is best understood, the 6 days of creation as outlined in Genesis 1. Day 1, we witness the forming of the heavens. Day 4, we witness the filling of the heavens. We read of that, and we can expect the same for what we read about the filling of the sky and the sea on day 5, and the filling of the day of earth, which culminates in the creation of man. And Elohim said, let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs in appointed times, and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the expanse of heaven to give light to the earth. And it came to be so. So this was necessary to have night and day, the existence of stars and celestial bodies. We were the original created celestial body, but there are hundreds of billions of other stars that we don't even know about in the vast infinitude of the universe. So this all came to be in the same day. He spoke it into existence, and he willed it into existence. And he didn't have to take 6 days. He could have created it in any amount of time that he took, but for whatever reasons beyond our ability to comprehend or even imagine, he did it in 6 days. And Elohim made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night of the star. These are the sun and the stars, and they are purposely not named because much of Israel's ancient Near Eastern neighbors were in the practice of worshiping the suns and the star. So the greater would have been the sun, which rules the day, and then the moon would have been the lesser that night. Solar worship and lunar worship were prolific. The Egyptians had a whole host of sun deities, and the ancient Arabs, Muhammad is actually a lunar deity, and the pre-Islamic polytheistic pantheon of the Arab people. But that's why the moon and the crescent is the sign and symbol of Islam. And Elohim placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. 7 times we read that word, everything is good, and then we read it is very good when he has completed all that there is to creation. The combined goodness is very good from all these things that he declared good. So creation's origins was in a pristine state of goodness, and then it got corrupted and maligned by angelic and then human rebellion. And there came to be evening, and that came to be morning, the 4th day. So this is day 4. We're going to open with day 5, verse 20, Genesis 1, lesson itself. And Elohim said, let the waters teem with shoals of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth, of the face of the expanse of the heavens. So on day 2, all we hear of is the sky and the sea. The sea is a source of life, and so is the sky. There are creatures which soar over it. There are creatures which swim under it. But they are not filled until day 5. So he is operating according to a mathematically precise logical pattern in his creation. This does bear the sign and stamp of an omniscient being, which is the attribute of infinite or unlimited intelligence. So in order to create this, he had to plan it. He had to conceive of the laws of physics. That's just beyond our abilities to do. So it wasn't only an expression of his omnipotence, but it was also an expression of his omniscience. Creation. He was wise enough to conceive it and powerful enough to execute it, and he is capable of being everywhere at once. And his omnipresence extends both across space. He can be anywhere at once, and also time. He is eternal, and he inhabits time on an altogether different plane. But that's getting away from the verses. So these things were created for the purpose of eventually being filled with forms of life. This is the origin of life, and that's why I divided this chapter, because grass is life form, but creatures that live and move in animal life is an altogether higher plane of existence. And they are there from the beginning, and they are given reproductive capacities to perpetuate their life on the earth. And Elohim created great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the water teemed, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. So the sea creatures, there are sharks, there are fish, there are sponge, there are algae. There is no shortage of diversity in aquatic life, and we have explored more of outer space than we have our own ocean. And also the origin of winged birds. Those are basically, bats and a few other non-bird category of animals inhabit the sky. But it's a sight to behold, a bird soaring across the sky. And so, of course, this was good. There's nothing wrong with that in itself. And Elohim blessed them, saying, bear fruit and increase, and fill the waters in the sea, and let the birds increase on the earth. So they were created not only to live, but to give life. And this is where we become partakers in creation. We are able to procreate. We are able to, from two humans, and two animal species, sexual procreation is the means of reproduction amongst animals. Plant life is a little different. But we are called to fill the earth, which was created to be filled by us, the same as the animals and the sea. Just imagine the bioecosystem in the sea. We don't even know the half, all that diversity there. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the fifth day. So this is Thursday, I believe. First day is Sunday. That's when the light was created. Second day is Monday. That's when the sky and sea were created. Third day is Tuesday. And then Wednesday would have been the fourth day. So this is the fifth day. This is Thursday. So they're weeks. This was the first Thursday in existence, and it was a 24-hour period. And that this was that completion of that. So it's all said and done for that designated time period. And Elohim said, let the earth bring forth the living creatures according to its kind, livestock and creeping creatures and beasts on the earth according to its kind. And it came to be so. So he didn't waste any time moving from filling the heavens and the sea to filling the earth. The earth is the land mass and inhabitable continents which are above sea level. So that's another level of life that exists, and then above us is the heavens, but the main one is the earth, because that's where man dwells. And they are designed once more, they are after a type. They have similar physical features and life processes, different species, and the enriching intricacy of the animal kingdom, and not only the animal kingdom, but the plant and the bacteria and just all of it really points to a truly wise and creative designer. And Elohim made the beast of the earth according to its kind, livestock according to its kind, and all that creep on the earth according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. So cows, cattle, whatever, livestock and beasts, that could be a bull, that could be any number one of things. It just means one that there is domesticated beast, and then there is beasts which aren't domesticated. That just means an animal, a mammal animal is what a beast is. And the livestock is the ones that, are more easily domesticated. They were created to be commanded and controlled by man as part of the stewardship which was given to us. And also the creeping on the earth. Now the serpent was originally a creeping animal. It had legs, but it lost its right as a consequence, because that's how Satan's the serpent sluttled in. Satan isn't mentioned; it's only implied in the name serpent in the 3rd chapter. And Elohim made the beast of the earth according to its kind. And verse 26, this is of central importance to the chapter of Genesis and the story of our creation. This is the explanation of our origins. So after everything else was created, we were the crowning point of after the animals and the birds and the fish and the plants and the trees and the earth and the heavens. We are the focal point of his creative and redemptive purpose. Verse 26, and Elohim said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over all the creeping creatures that creep on the earth. So the first thing we notice is that this is a plural. First off, Elohim is plurality in itself. So this is a Trinitarian witness of the Trinity in tandem. The Spirit is mentioned as a distinct collaborator in creation. And from the New Testament revelation, we understand that the Messiah was a co-collaborator and co-creator. He was there and he helped create everything that is. But in our image, so again, the plural pronoun, us and our, this is not, strictly speaking, a singular being. He exists in three persons. Of course, the Jews interpret this with a more militant monotheist. They declared it as a royal declaration, much as the king, a king on earth, will refer to we and ours. He will refer to himself in that tense as the royal prerogative. But there's no difference between image and likeness. These are synonyms, similar. We read them in 5:1. They were Adam's progeny. They were made after his likeness. And image. So the likeness is already mentioned, I believe, when he says words such as. You know what? I can't find it. But we owe our dominant species status because it was divinely appointed, not through a million-year struggle of evolution. We were dominant from the beginning, and we are able to dominate and control and conquer the animals because we have superior brain power. So as to precisely what the image is, there's a variety of hypotheses, but we don't read that any of the animals were endowed with the image, but it is our royal democracy as humans to be endowed with the image. And what do we have that animals don't? We have spirits. Human nature exists in Trinity. We have three levels. We have bodies. These are the ability to respond to external stimuli. Plants have them. Souls, which is the self-awareness. Animals have souls. But spirits enable us to connect and communicate and comprehend the spiritual element in our life. And none of the animal has it. So I think our image is our spiritual capacities. For what it's worth, but in any case, it is his stamp that we are like him and we are created from him, and we have I don't want to blaspheme here, but we do have a sort of godlike purpose in the natural order to sustain it all and to not exploit it or use it. We'll touch on the dimensions of stewardship more fully after the 28th verse. And Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So gender was determined, and I feel that it's just insane what's kind of hijacking academia, the transgender mania, which, there's no established consensus as to precisely how many imaginary genders there are, but the state of California is teaching children as young as 6 that there are 15 legitimate genders. There's only 2. There's only 2 biologically possible ones. There's only 2 that are ordained of God. Gender is a simple concept which gets muddled and confused by impious imagination. So there are 2 men and women, and the same is true. There are male and females in the animal species as well. But we don't read now the order. He created the man before the woman. We read the man's name is Adam and the woman's name is Eve in the 3rd chapter of Genesis. But there it's just saying this all took place on the 6th day of creation. And Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said to them, bear fruit and increase, and fill the earth and subdue it, and to rule over the fish in the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over all creatures moving on the earth. So there's an additional instruction provided by the spoken voice of Elohim that is nowhere in made in reference to the animals or anyone else. It is to subdue the earth. They're designed to fill the earth. Remember, the pattern exists of a formation and then a filling. We are in day 6. This is day 3. What was formed is now being filled. But we are told to domesticate and control and dominate. Animals do exist for our pleasure. That's been that way from the beginning. But, we do there is such a thing as responsible stewardship, and, the state of our environment and the state of our planet does not measure well on our report card, for stewardship. And Elohim said, "See, I have given you every plant that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it is for food." So the original food of chain ecosystem was a vegetarian diet. That meat wasn't introduced into the diet until the Noah, the post-Diluvian period. As a consequence of the flood, the animal food chain was effectively revolutionized. But originally, every eventually carnivorous creature was created with vegetarian capacities. They could subsist and live on vegetables. This was the chain of the natural selection for close to 2,500 years. "And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to every creeping creature on the earth, in which there is a breath of life, every green plant is for food. And it came to be so." So he commanded, and it was created. It came to be so just like that because he wished it and he willed it into existence. So the earth is now formed. It is now filled. It is now good. But, when sin rears its ugly head, then everything becomes not so good. But and Elohim saw all that he had made, and see, it was very good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the 6th day. So we've read that word good. He declares what he has created to be good a total of 7 times prior to this declaration. Here it is very good. So this is the culmination. This is the combination of everything that is good in itself combined beyond itself. It is very good. And so in its pristine state, before sin entered the picture, the universe and the creation was very good. There was nothing wrong with it until angelic and then human rebellion. But this was the 6th day of creation. Now the 7th day is what we're going to read of next in the first 3 verses of the next chapter. This is the original Sabbath. So we were created on Friday. That is when we were breathed life into. And then the Sabbath takes place. That is when Elohim rested, not because he was tired. He is an indefatigable being. He is incapable of, his omniscience does not allow him to get tired. He is not subjected to sleep, as Elijah taunted and caricatured the deity Baal when confronting their prophets. So, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their array. So it's all said and done. It's all said and good. Everything is in motion. Everything is alive. Everything is good to go. On the heavens and the earth, they are fulfilled. They are created. All that's left for it to do is to procreate, to continue their existence through procreation. And on the 7th day Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. So Elohim is our model, and the number 7 is given numerological significance, which points to divinity, completion, wholeness, purity. It is the most sacred and significant number in the Hebrew numerology. And it owes its origins of its sacredness to the day that he rests. Now, he did not rest because he was tired. He rested in the sense that a lawyer might rest their case when everything they've said is already said. There's nothing left to do. They could go on, but what's left to do? So he rested on that day. So he created the heavens and the earth and everything in them on the 6th day of creation, and he is still creating galaxies since this. And Elohim blessed the 7th day and made it sacred, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim in creating had made. So this is the origin of the Sabbath. That word doesn't appear here, but it's closely connected. Sabbath is Saturday, and that is the day of the week in which Elohim blessed and rested. So that became the day on which the Hebrew people, as a redeemed people, they had backbreaking slave labor for the Egyptians all day, every day, and throughout the day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Their lives consisted of backbreaking and grueling physical manual labor, but they were given the gift of the Sabbath, and they were commanded not to work on it. It was their day to gather. They were not to travel more than a mile from one's home. That law, the Sabbath law, eventually came into being, and that the observance of it can be traced to the 16th chapter of Exodus. And just to prove that Yahweh wasn't playing about the proper observances of the day, he smote a man who gathered sticks on that day. So the seventh day of the Sabbath is a day to be taken seriously and reverently, and that is the day when we especially devote ourselves to Elohim. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Stay tuned until next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.